So I think we'll get started. Again, it is great to have all of you with us tonight. We're thrilled to be able to share this program with you, to give some guiding principles and insight into the college athletics and college recruiting process. We have an outstanding panel this evening, just unbelievable experiences, phenomenal individuals, and people that have done a tremendous amount in the sports world at all different levels and programs. And we feel a really, really valuable opportunity to hear from them and learn and get some recommendations and thoughts from the experts and those student athletes that have been through it and coaches that have been doing it for a long time. My name is Micah Halban. I'm the Dean of Athletics here at King School. Emily Prince and I will be co-moderating this program. She is one of our college counselors, one of our head coaches, as well as our Director of Student Athlete Leadership and Experience. And really for us tonight, this is a chance to, again, give insights, guiding principles, some thoughts about the process, hear from the experts, be able to answer your questions, and hopefully provide you with some context, some thoughts, and some takeaways as you and your student athletes move on from here and whatever grade or level you are looking at moving on to in the college ranks. King is a rich history of very, very competitive and strong teams. As you'll hear from two of our former student athletes tonight, we have a number of our athletes that move on every year to incredible institutions, have tremendous careers in all different areas of college athletics and beyond. And we think the value of sports and the life lessons and the takeaways, right, not only prepare our student athletes for college athletics, but what comes after King, what comes after college. And really it's about, right, becoming better athletes, but also better people. And I think that those special guests we have tonight are really going to stress that, and you'll hear just the genuine passion that they have for children and for athletes in the programs that they coach and work with. So what each one of us will do is a quick intro and a background. I came to King from Boston, where I was an athletic director for a large public school district, sending many athletes on to all different levels at a school in Philadelphia. Before that, my pathway of athletics in high school was a football and basketball player. I'd grown up before high school swimming competitively, and I played water polo at the Division I level. And as we'll talk about perspectives and keeping a realistic view of opportunities and how the divisions and the different sports have very wide-ranging guidelines and bylaws. In the case of Division I water polo, that is the level of the water polo, but in terms of funding and scholarships, it's a much different playing field. And so these will be some of the things we talk about tonight. When we look at this chance to take part in athletics and all the value it comes with, we feel like this is really a starting point for all of you on this call to start to think about what your future can hold. But it's hard work, takes a lot of commitment, energy, time, a lot of sacrifices you'll hear tonight. And again, we really think this is a great chance to start that thinking for each of you. And as you know, Emily and I are available for any questions after the call. One thing I'm going to do in the chat as we get started is just share our guiding principles packet so everyone can see that. And I'll also put a link to our Pursuing College Athletics webpage where the recording of this video, if you have to jump off or have any internet issues, will be posted. So I'm going to hand it over to Emily to talk a little bit of her background now, and then we'll introduce our panelists. So again, thank you very much for being with us, and we're thrilled to have you all with us this evening.
Good evening, yes, and thank you, and hopefully I don't have any internet issues. My name is Emily Townsend Prince. I am Miss Prince to some, and I am mommy to 3 proud lower school students in grade 1, 3, and 5, Hugo, Penny, and Piper. I am definitely building the pipeline and growing the program as much as I can, working with the lower school there. I wear 3 main hats at King. I'm a college counselor, and I work with students who don't want to pursue college athletics and also those students who do want to pursue college athletics. I'm also the Director of Student Athlete Leadership and Experience. And my first role before all of those was a field hockey coach, and I started at King 7 years ago as a coach. I was a 3-time All-American at Princeton. I am wearing my sweater just to totally snob it out tonight. When I was at Princeton, I was a 3-time All-American and played for the junior national team, the U19 team there, hoping to pursue my Olympic dream. Some background about my athletics career and how I knew college athletics was the right path for me. In high school, my high school extracurriculars were dominated by sports. So I went to Taft and played field hockey, basketball, and lacrosse. I was an All-American in both lacrosse and field hockey at Taft, and I was a New England MVP. So sports still is the closest thing that I can do that's magic, and some of you can relate to that. It's an incredible feeling when your body's going through the mechanics of your sport, and it's the best test of the mind-body connection. So I knew that I had to pursue this at the highest level. My uncles were also college athletes, and I just knew it was a natural path for me. I did have an easy recruitment process, so I am saying that for a reason. I was lucky that I made the national team, the U19 national team, and was already an All-American. So I had already been vetted, arguably. And I did get top looks from colleges. And when I took my official visit, the Princeton coach was pretty much just like, "You're coming here." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm coming. I'm going to Princeton." And I did that my senior year, which is really different from what the experience is now. And I can really only imagine what my high school career would have been like had I been consumed by the recruitment process, like some of you all will be or are. I was not consumed with it. I was lucky in the sense that I just was able to play my sport, and then senior year, boom, it happened. But I did know that Princeton was the right place for me. It was the conduit for all the life lessons to transfer over to me, and I loved it. So when I graduated from Princeton, I started working for the EPA, and I was coaching all the time. And I knew that I always wanted to stay involved with my sport. And so I started coaching, and then I realized a lot of these players can play at the next level. And I started it with the recruitment process. We called a bunch of coaches, and I also had gotten a job at ABC's Extreme Makeover. So I became a post-production supervisor there, and with that process and with that experience, I was able to make highlight reels. So one thing led to another. In my entrepreneurial spirit, I started a company. It had a three-prong approach. It had highlight reels, coaching, and college consulting. And I did that, and then I got the job at King. And one thing led to another. This is what I love to do, and now it allows me to be surrounded by awesome people like all these here today on the call. So I'm going to pass things over. Logistically speaking, I will just say real quick that we're going to have intros until about 7:30. And then from 7:30 to 8, we have topics that we've included in the outline and to the emails that we sent out to you. And we're going to have our panelists go through those topics. And then the last half hour will be Q&A, and you can pop questions into the Q&A at that time. So thanks again for being here, and I'll pass it over to Tom.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Bora. I'm the men's head rowing coach at Boston University. I'm in my 14th season now at BU, and I've really enjoyed it, the coaching. My background just in rowing obviously is a little bit different sport. It's when I was in high school, there was a lot of high schools that didn't have rowing. So I started as a walk-on in college at Florida Institute of Technology, and just fell in love with the sport. I mean, I was active in swimming and strength training, and I just found rowing to be something I really kind of enjoyed, and I felt like I had some promise in it. And rowed in college, and then was fortunate enough to row 4 years later on an Olympic team in '88, and then 4 years later in Barcelona. So it's
I think you're being really modest right now, by the way, Tom.
Well, but anyway, it's not the path when I grew up thinking like I was going to go to the Olympics, or I didn't really know, or just be part of a sport. So, when I found rowing in college, it just kind of opened up a whole new world to me. And then, I worked for probably about 10 years as an engineer. I did environmental engineering, and then started coaching on the side a little bit, and started coaching like junior programs and master's programs, and then just figured that this is something that I want to do to full time, and was fortunate enough in 2008 to start at BU. But it's been, I look forward to sharing. I know my topic tonight is going to be talking about financial aid and scholarships, and we can kind of get more into that. But it's playing sports and in college is a really great way to spend your your 4 years at a university. There's so much they can offer. Just being on a team and learning things about yourself, and it can be a pretty special thing to go through. And for me, the philosophy for coaching is that, I look for kids that just want to work hard, and it's I've had a lot of good, in my athletic or my rowing career, I've had a lot of good coaches along the way, and I've learned from all of them. And the coaches that I did the most, when I performed the best with as coaches that were encouraging, obviously pushed you, but just had positive attitudes, and really just knew how to kind of bring you up when you were down. And that's kind of, I think the coaching that I do is, I push people hard, but I want it to be a good experience for them. I want them to enjoy it, and I want them, at the end of their 4 years at BU, to feel like they would do it again. So anyway, I'll turn it over to the next panelist, and I look forward to sharing more with you in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Emily, I think I'm up next.
You are up next. Yes, DJ Emily is going to Bill Decker.
I'm the elder statesman amongst the group. Tom, I coached Drew back in football in 1986 at Wesleyan. So make sure you tell him I said hello.
I will, yeah.
I told Emily this morning or last night, I got home at 3:30 in the morning from Miami on Monday to be attacked by my Irish setter. So I'll try to make do at my time. Year 36 for me at a paid position. I actually, on the way home from practice tonight, thought about my first job with student teaching back I was an undefeated 7th grade girls basketball coach back in 1980 something. And that was my first experience, but my first full-time job, at least paid position, was actually at Phillips Exeter, where I coached football, basketball, and baseball. Went on to Deerfield Academy for a year, sang 3 sports, actually ran the equipment room. And then for me, it was time to get back into college athletics. So I took an internship position at Wesleyan University, coaching a couple sports. My first full-time job, head job, was at McAllister College out in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I've got a few Division III roots. I was out in the Twin Cities for a year, 1 year to the date, July 31st to July 31st, when I was offered the job as a 2-sport coach at Trinity College in Connecticut. Again, coaching 2 sports. In 1999, I was actually the head football coach and head baseball coach for a year. Got out of football and then kind of moved on in a career path, full-time baseball coach. Prior to that, I was a 3-sport athlete, and obviously in high school, and then in prep school, I did a PG year. And people ask why, because I was a young 17-year-old high school kid that was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. But nonetheless, about 10 years ago, I got a call. I was on vacation with my wife and my 3 young kids at that time, and Harvard called and said, "Would you be interested in our head baseball job?" And my response was, "I don't know." And they said, "Well, if you're interested, let me know. Call us next week." So I never actually called them back. I was watching my oldest daughter play youth soccer, and they called me and said, "Listen, we need an answer today." So I said, "Sure, I'll apply." And anyway, fast forward, I was offered the job in the fall of 2012. 10 years later, I continued to enjoy what I do. And for me, and not just for the panelists, but for everybody here watching, for me, it's not really a job. It's just what I like to do. We're in the people business. We're here to challenge people. We're here to coach young men and women. We're just here to really invest in them as people, and I think they need to invest in one another together. I don't know if there's perspective of mine is always, yesterday's the past, tomorrow's the future, and today is a present, and that's why we call it a gift. And that's how I kind of live my life, because yesterday's over, and tomorrow I don't know what could happen. But today, just enjoy what you do. My message to our players is about the investment piece. Just like dollars and cents you invest, you're going to get more in your returns. And I don't claim to be a financial person, just so everybody knows. But I think that's the way to go, and to challenge people, to agree to disagree, to just really enjoy, what you do. And we just experienced this past weekend. We went down to play a top 25 school in the University of Miami, and nobody said we could do it. Well, we went on Friday night and we lose a 2-1 ball game on Saturday night. So we almost shocked everybody. And then we fell asleep on Sunday, but nonetheless, make the most of your experiences. Kind of a common theme that I use is every day above the grass line in the sport of baseball is a good day, because you know the alternative. But also for the high school kids in attendance, you got a chance to put 2 feet on the floor every day and go. And it doesn't have to be 24/7, 365, because you will burn out. Okay, you will burn out. So put things aside, be able to, blow things out and find free time in your life every day. I think that's probably the most valuable thing I can give you, other than live your path, not somebody else's path. So I'm going to pass the baton, Emily, again, and Micah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Coach.
Moving on to Jill from Springfield.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Jill Serafino. I'm the assistant women's soccer coach at Springfield College, which is a D3 school in Springfield, Mass. I've been coaching for about 20 years. I've been coaching college for about 15 across all divisions. And I'm also involved with a semi-professional women's soccer team up in Massachusetts. I didn't start right away in college. I started as a youth coach for a few years, and then coaching high school, both soccer and tennis. And then I was fortunate enough to meet the right person and get my foot in the door with college coaching at a pretty young age, and I've been doing it ever since. So as a high school athlete, I was a 2-sport athlete. I played soccer and tennis all throughout high school. Played soccer all year round. That was my first love. And the passion for the game really just kept growing for me. I really didn't know how to go about the recruiting process. I was at a really small high school. My parents had really no experience with it. I didn't have any family members that had played college sports before, so it was really new to us. But I had my heart set on a school and thought that I was going to go. And it wasn't a large school; it was Division III, but it was out of state, and I really wanted to kind of spread my wings, or so I thought at the time. And then another coach kind of came into play at a smaller D3 school closer to home, and he just kind of kept hounding me and said he valued me as a player. He had a vision for me on the field. And so he just said, come to campus and meet some people, and then you can make your decision. So I did, reluctantly, but I did. And I met with team members. I met with the athletic director, the dean of students, and professors, and really just kind of fell in love with the people. And ultimately, that's where I ended up going. So really was unexpected, but it was a good experience. I think the people made the experience for me. So, my advice to everyone on this webinar is, if you're in the early stages of the college search process, just go in with an open mind. Take every opportunity as they come and try and visit a variety of campuses if you have the ability to do so, because you might surprise yourself. And definitely talking to people. So talk to as many coaches as you can, especially early on in the process when you're visiting.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to our student athletes now, who are our fantastic King alums. So Ren, you're up.
How you guys doing? First off, just thank you guys for having me. I was on the same team as you guys. I was a King class of 2018, so I graduated 4 years ago. I don't think I quite was in high school for any of you guys. But I am a current student athlete here at Bucknell University, where I play football and baseball. We just finished my senior year of football, so I'm all done with that. So I'm a 1-sport athlete as of now. But at King, I was a 3-sport athlete. I was a football, basketball, baseball. I was a 12-season varsity athlete. I loved my time there. Won a few championships, have some great memories, and friends that I still talk to every day, and you're still my best friends, when I come home and visit me at school and I go visit them. So, you guys are having a great time in your life, and, cherish what you have right now. But, there's a lot of great things ahead, and things to look forward to. So, for me, my experience and my recruiting process of how I ended up where I am is a little bit unique, and different probably from everyone else. So we can, I'll talk about that as well, but it definitely wasn't the normal. So being a two-sport athlete is some that I'm very grateful for and very fortunate enough to have the opportunity to do both. But it's not what I went to college for. I was originally I decided pretty early on in high school that I was going to be a football player. And that was kind of where my love was at the time, and still is. And I love sport, obviously, but at the time, that's what I wanted to do, and that's the path that I decided to follow. So I never really ended up going through the baseball recruiting process in high school. So I didn't necessarily, I can't necessarily speak on that behalf, but I know a lot about it as well. But for me, I went and decided to play at Bucknell super late. I had a lot of different things that kind of I was hoping for, bigger schools early on, went on a bunch of visits to a lot of places and really loved it. And, I think one thing that I can say is like, don't necessarily, count your chickens before they hatch. A lot of things, a lot of coaches will tell you a lot of things, and, sometimes it's a lot of truth and sometimes it's not necessarily. So, for me, I had a few things that ended up not falling the way that I would have liked them to, but that's how it works. And that's all part of the business that we're all in. So for me, it was early on in my process. I was hoping to be committed my junior year, didn't end up happening. And then I went through, obviously the summer camp circuit of recruiting, all my junior, senior year as well. So I did a lot of that, a lot of visits to schools, kind of figure out what type of school I liked, what I didn't really like, and what I was looking for. So that was definitely really helpful for me of, what I was looking for at the end of the day. But I ended up committing to Bucknell right before or right after, I think, the second signing day of my senior year. So I was a super late commit for football. Things, before that I thought were going to happen didn't happen. But it's, it all happens for a reason. I'm glad that I am where I am today. And then, so for me, I played my freshman year, had a great time. And, the football part of it for us wasn't necessarily winning on the field. We had a rough first year for me, with, in terms of wins and losses, and our coaching staff ended up leaving, and, getting fired, however you want to put it. But so we got a new coaching staff top to bottom. And it only took a little while for them to come in and make some changes. And I was one of those changes. My position got moved. It wasn't something I was happy with at first. And it just something that I had to kind of roll with. But at the time, it wasn't the decision that I wanted and what I felt was right, but it was what I did and went along with, what the coach thought was best and was best for the team. And then I ended up, I always wanted to play baseball in college and play both, but it was something that I couldn't really always do. So I sent some emails out and talked to our baseball coach, and it kind of just, it worked itself out. And I ended up basically being a walk-on to the baseball team my sophomore year. So my sophomore year was my first year playing. And ever since then, that was it. I did both ever since, right after, Thanksgiving break, my sophomore year. So I definitely have a pretty unique experience, especially through COVID. I can talk a little more about that later, but especially last spring, we had our football season and baseball season both in the spring. So I was doing both at the same time, which was a lot for sure. So it was kind of, Saturday game day for football, and then Sundays I was with the baseball team and doing all that. So it was definitely quite the experience, and something I don't regret, but it was a lot for sure. And yeah, I mean, we can talk a little more about that later, but I think just, for me, one of the biggest things of advice is, I think, go where you're wanted, and don't necessarily fall in love with a coach per se, because at the end of the day, it's a business, and these coaches, move around a little bit, for the betterment of their career. So find a place where you really like it, as academically, as wherever it is geographically. So fall in love with the school first, and then kind of, everything else that comes with it is just a bonus that, goes in your favor. So that's just one thing I'd like to say. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys more.
Thanks, Ryan. And I'll just give a shout out to Coach G, who I know is really instrumental in your process too.
Yes, absolutely. Coach G is definitely the biggest one in my process. So got to shout out Coach G.
Shout out Coach G. All right, Allie, you want to close us off with the intros?
Yeah, it would be an honor. Hi, everyone. Super happy to be here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, phoning in, however you have joined. My name's Allie, class of 2015 from King. Haven't been back in a minute. I hear everything is great. Some renovations have happened. Really excited to go. I went to Haverford College. It's a pretty small liberal arts school outside of Philly, D3. I had the incredible opportunity to play soccer for 4 years, and then I walked onto the lacrosse team for 2. It's a bit less tense and tumultuous than Ren's story because it's not D1. So you can play D3 sports, as I'm sure many of you know, you can play multiple, and it's like a bit less, oh my God. So if you want to talk about kind of juggling multi-sports in a D3 fashion, I think that's something that us in like the D3 circuit can definitely chat more about, because navigating that, I really enjoyed as a walk-on. It was an absolute blast, and a highlight of my life. So coming from King, I also played 3 sports: basketball, soccer, and lacrosse. Loved it. King, as you guys know, an absolute blast to be an athlete at. I think for me, why soccer? My big thing was that I became a goalie sophomore year. So it was kind of that niche that did it for me. If you're able to kind of figure out what in your position can click, that is where you can go. Ren, were you a QB? Was that right? Okay, yeah. So I feel like when you can kind of figure that out and figure out like what is working for me at this time and kind of try to maximize on that as early as you can, try different positions out, get really creative with it. If this isn't working, don't, ride or die on the back line if you don't have to. That is probably what I would say. I thought I was a great defender and I wasn't. I was not great at footwork. And that was something that I just learned because 3 girls got injured and I was the next one up in, the goalie lineup because I played basketball and they figured that my hands were good. And now I made a college career out of it, which was the serendipitous way that I, played college ball. So pretty incredible. So just kind of raise your hand for stuff if you're interested in trying a new position. It could totally work in your favor. So that was why soccer for me, and kind of how the goalie made sense in that way. So yeah, my advice there would just be take tons of chances, and that was awesome for me. I had no idea what I was doing with the recruiting process. That was just a makeshift experience, top to bottom, hilarious in hindsight. I just inundated coaches with emails from all divisions, just said, gosh, I hope you take me. And then over time, I learned how to refine the email. I'm sure, Micah and Emily talked to you guys about this a bunch as far as like, what does this email look like? And how do you reach out to a coach? So I think that's something that you guys should also kind of think about. So like why this school is another thing, instead of just kind of talking to tons of people all the time, maybe be thoughtful about that list that you're curating on a weekly basis. So yeah, and then lastly, I didn't play in any kind of leagues, so I wasn't in any travel teams. And so when you're trying to connect with coaches, I would say be really thoughtful about the camps that you're going to, because that's pretty much what got me connected with my coach. Was I was able to go to a bunch of her clinics. I just kind of stalked her around the country for 2 years. And then I was kind of emailing her beforehand saying, hey, Jamie, I'm going to be at this one. Can't wait to see you. And then after, hey, that was so fun. It was so great to see you. And then would just do that for, I think, 3 different camps and clinics. And then that's kind of how we got connected. So once you do kind of hone in, make it an effort if you can to go out to those camps and clinics. And I think having that personal touch is really, really helpful. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Great. Thank you, Allie. Yeah, tremendous introductions and really great to hear all your perspectives and thoughts. And hopefully as we go through, people on the call are starting to just think about what questions you might have. We're going to cover some topics now and give each one of our presenters a chance to talk about a certain area of kind of college athletics and college recruiting. And then we're going to open it up to more questions for all of you. So I think when we look at the different topics we're going to cover, we're looking at some of the differences in the comparison between NCAA Division I, Division II, and Division III. We're going to look at some of the contact rules and regulations and some thoughts on navigating that. As Tom mentioned before, we think about athletic scholarships, merit aid, how it works at the different divisions. Allie and Ren, who have already talked a little about it, we'll really get a little bit more deep into this idea of what it actually is like to be a college student athlete, what that experience is, and then kind of wrap up with some guiding principles and philosophies from all our presenters before we open the floor up to questions. So those questions that come in right now, we will absolutely keep those on the list to talk about. We're going to go in right now to these topics, and we're going to open up with Coach Serafino to talk about some comparisons between the different divisions and thoughts you have there, Coach.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Emily was nice enough to give me the daunting task of the comparison between among all of the different levels, but I'm staying away from some of like the rules and regulations because I know those are going to be covered. So I tried to break it down to make it easier for everybody to understand the differences when they are approaching their search and the whole process with coaches and recruiting and how to navigate that. But so I broke it down by the business perspective, philosophies and time, travel, and commitment. So as far as the business perspective goes, with Division I, they are more revenue building, and that's their basis, especially for the bigger sports. So success to them equals winning to bring in money because it is helping to fund everything that they have throughout athletics and the rest of the school. So that's why they're able to offer athletic scholarships, especially for the bigger sports, in order to get the top athletes so that they can hopefully win and bring in more money. D3 is really just based on institutional budgeting, and that's coming from students' tuition, fundraising, donors, endowments, and it really just gets kind of separated and divvied up amongst all of the departments at the school, including athletics. So that's how that is funded. D2, I won't go into a lot of D2 things. I have some examples here and there throughout my talk, but they fall in the middle of everything, and that's what makes them D2. As far as the philosophies and time commitment, I think it's important for prospective student athletes to realize that D1 does place a lot of emphasis on athletics. So the time that you're there, you're going to be participating in your sport for pretty much the entire academic year. You don't really have off time unless the institution is off, especially for those bigger sports. So for instance, for soccer, I guess I can speak for soccer a lot, but for soccer at the Division I level, you are off in the winter when you have a winter break, and you're off in the summer, but it's becoming less and less. Lots of Division I athletes are going back in July. They're working with strength and conditioning coaches, and then they'll start up with their actual soccer coach August 1st. Preseason lasts about a month. Whereas Division III, you don't really report until maybe the third week in August, around August 20th or so, for preseason for a fall sport. So there's kind of a big difference there. Your breaks are definitely longer for Division III. Let's see. D3 definitely emphasizes academics, and that athletics is a co-curricular. So it's almost as though athletics is a supportive activity. It doesn't mean that it's not competitive. It can be very highly competitive. It's just that academics come first, and that's where the timing is different in terms of where those student athletes are placing their focus. So we do have an off season, quote unquote, for Division III. So although they're there at the school, like right now, all of my athletes are back at school. They're back from winter break, but I'm not allowed as a coach to have any sort of contact with them in terms of soccer. So we can't do any training. They can do things on their own, but a coach can't be present. They can be with a strength and conditioning coach, but they can't do soccer stuff with a soccer coach. So there is more downtime and more off time for Division III. Division II, although they report back with their coaches after a winter break, for instance, if there's fall sport in their non-traditional season, they are kind of limited on the hours a week that they can be touching a ball, working with a coach, things like that. So there's a little bit of an in-between for Division II, if all of that makes sense. The
Definitely.
travel, Emily, do you have a question?
Nope.
Oh, okay. The travel for Division I is usually a lot greater than it would be for Division III or Division II even. Division III and II, the conferences are set up more regionally based, which is helpful, especially because Division II places so much emphasis on academics. They really are trying to limit the amount of class time that's missed by their student athletes. So they're very cognizant of that with the schedule. Usually we just have one competition during the week and one competition on the weekends, or a couple competitions on the weekends. That way there, you're not missing a whole lot of class time. Overnights for travel and season are also limited as best as we can. There are parts of the country geographically where, although it's a regionally based conference, it's still so spread out that they don't really have a choice in the matter. But the travel is definitely more extensive at Division I, so more class time is missed. And traditionally, like in the past, and I know like the D1 people on this call can speak more to it, but now that Zoom has become so big in technology, and now like when you're on the road, you know, you have Wi-Fi on your buses and on planes, you probably have a little bit more access to tutoring and all of the academic resources, whereas in the past, they used to just send tutors on the trips for the athletes. So in that sense, it's, I think, a little bit better. So when these student athletes are traveling all over the country and they're gone for, you know, multiple days at a time, they do have access to all the resources and the courses and the things that they need, much more so than in the past. The commitment for D1 it's huge. I mean, it's physically, mentally, and emotionally taxing at times. It's a large commitment. It takes a lot of passion, and not everybody is cut out for it, but even the ones that are cut out for it, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything that you're putting in, you're going to be offered athletic scholarship money. And I know that might be touched on later, but not every Division I athlete is there on athletic scholarship. But you're still expected to put in the same time commitment, the same physical commitment, emotional commitment. So it can be draining, and it does take, you know, a certain person to find their personal balance with that. Whereas Division III, the schools typically give you the balance. So you're not going to be, you know, with your team and with your coach around the clock. Like I said, you have a lot of downtime, a lot of off time, so that you can get involved in other activities, clubs, and focus on your academics. Lots of times there are Division I quality players that choose to play Division III, and their reason could be that they want more time away from their sport, more rest time. Other reasons could be that they're entering a demanding academic program that they don't feel like they could balance the two. And so it's really just a personal preference at that point, thinking ahead to your careers. And so a lot of you, when you're deciding on schools and you're thinking about, you know, playing sports, what else are you going to school for? And that's what you need to determine. You know, if you're looking at you want to be physician's assistant or something like that, then pre-med, that might be hard to juggle. And that's something that you need to talk to the schools about, the coaches about, to figure out how they manage the time when you're in an academic program like that. So how do you really determine where you fit is, I think, the hardest question for any prospective student athlete, any high school student, to really self-evaluate, but it's necessary. And Emily and I have talked about this a little bit with students and self-assessment. Another way would be coach evaluations. So in terms of self-assessment, you have to see the signs. Effort alone doesn't mean that you're good enough for any level. Ability does play a huge factor in that. So I think naturally as an athlete, your effort is going to be high. But my effort that I give doesn't necessarily mean that my ability is going to be higher or better than the other person that's putting the same amount of effort. So you really have to look at yourself and where you end up sitting in the whole spectrum of the benchmarks of your particular sport from low to high. So knowing those benchmarks is important. For instance, at the high school, are you making varsity as a freshman? Are you on the JV team? Are you on a freshman team? And then how do you progress from there? What happens year 2? Are you receiving any words or acknowledgement from your conference, your league, your state, your county, your region? Are you playing outside of high school on, is there a club or something like that in your sport? Are you playing at the highest level that's offered? So those are the questions that maybe you can start to ask yourself in order to assess where you might lie on that spectrum. In terms of the coach evaluations, maybe looking at, and I know Allie had mentioned this, going to college clinics and camps. So ID clinics and camps are a great way to get some formal evaluations on your abilities. And it could be at schools that you're interested in so that you're getting in front of those coaches. It could be some ID camps that are run by another organization, but college coaches are welcome to come and watch and evaluate and assess, but that organization might give you a written formal evaluation about where you're at with your abilities and the level that they think that you're able to play at once you go to college. So that's a good opportunity. Another one would be to just ask your coaches, ask your high school coaches, ask your club coaches for advice on where you stand and what they're most familiar with. Maybe they can come up with a comparison and say, you're a lot like a player of mine that went on to play at this such and such Division II school, and this is why. So ask those really tough questions of your coaches, but expect that you're going to get an honest response, and you have to be ready for that honesty. And that's okay. I think it's just going to help you to find the best fit for you. So, I don't want to go on too much. And Emily, I don't know how much you want me to expand on all of those things. I just know in my experience coaching at all 3 levels, it was really, really important for those prospective student athletes and those recruits to come to campus, to have, the conversations face to face, as much as you can later on in your process when you start to narrow it down, or that you've been looked at by certain coaches. But to get onto the campus makes a huge difference. You can do unofficial visits and official visits at the school. I would highly recommend doing an official visit and staying overnight, getting to know the team, doing all that you can so that you'll know what it's like if you attend that college and you are a student athlete at that school. I think that that's the best way to know if you really fit, if you fit in with the group, and if you feel comfortable. Also, understanding the level at which you're seeking. So if you're looking at Division I, for instance, and there's always a range. So in each division, there's going to be a range in level, really, of schools on the playing field or whatever sport it is that you play. But you really have to go and watch them play. So whether that's a live stream or going to see them in person, going to see a game or a competition in person is going to help you to look at, the whole scope. So to see the speed that's expected, or, the size, the physicality, whatever it is in whatever sport that is, I think it's really important to go and watch. I think it makes a huge difference. I've had tons of recruits come watch and they said, oh, we didn't realize how fast the game is. So it's really important, I think, for you to just get yourself there in person and see as much as you can and talk to as many people as you can.
Thanks, Jill.
Yeah.
Great, Coach. Yep, that was tremendous. So Coach Decker, we're going to move over and just have you talk a little bit about contact rules and regulations. And what we did in the chat, for most of you, if you don't have it, you can chat me directly and I'll send it. The link there to our guiding principles packet actually has all of the NCAA Division I, Division II, Division III contact rules and regulations listed on the last few pages. But we have an expert in Coach Decker here to talk directly about it. So we'll have Coach talk about your sense of some of those policies there, Coach.
Not sure of my expertise. I just try to pass that recruiting exam every year. Listen, I'm glad some of the panelists are laughing too, because it's ever changing. And like Jill said, I'm a little bit gray on Division II. I spent 20 something years at the Division III level, and obviously now at the Division I level. But I think the biggest thing is at the Division III level, there's really no recruiting calendar. There's no dead periods. There's no quiet periods. And it's not the wild, wild west either. They're just allowed to do what they can do. And in my previous experience, a lot of it is up to the institutional dollars and cents and where you can go and can't go effective to cost measures. So in my years at Trinity, I think we're allowed about $500 to recruit in the summer. That got a little bit better towards the end of my career at Trinity, where maybe we get $1,000. But as Jill mentioned, you end up going to recruiting camps so you can live and make a few dollars to pay for your hotel and meals and whatever else. I think the biggest difference at the Division I level, and I think the direct question, Micah, was, why do we have to wait to contact them to September 1 of their junior year? Well, it used to be their senior year, at least in baseball. So they've backed that up a little bit. And I think in some sports too, it was backed up even more. In my personal opinion, again, 36 years in, whatever, is I think it's where it needs to be right now. So much can change from somebody's freshman year of high school to their sophomore year. Again, there's a wide academic range throughout the country, doesn't matter what level, but so many things are going on in the young people's lives that, I think you got to have a little bit of substance. You've got to have a little bit of know into that recruit's transcript and whatever else he or she is going through. So respectful to, there are some dead periods at Division I level. It is specific to sports. So I would encourage everybody on this call tonight to kind of look at your sport. Today's March 1st. It's our first official day that Division I baseball is allowed to be on the road recruiting again. So from January 1 through March 1st, we were in a quiet period, which is no off-campus recruiting. We do have some dead periods along the way, which are really centered around holidays. And a dead period doesn't matter. You can't go off campus. If a prospective student athlete comes on campus, you're not supposed to talk to that person. It's basically dead, which is a little bit difficult because they could walk into your office and you got to say, hey, it's a dead period, I can't talk to you. And they might take that the wrong way. And you might lose them as a recruit, but do your homework, people on the call, about what your specific sport dead periods are. Okay. And again, they're different from sport to sport. And I'll just kind of get back into the second part of this question, Micah, which is advise how to contact coaches, emails, create relationships. I've always said it's better lucky than good on our end. You got to be at the right place at the right time, seeing the right kid on his or her best day. And then you got to follow that up. So I would say don't overdo the emails. Generally, just don't overdo the emails. A weekly email for me is somebody that's kind of, hey, you better recruit me. You better recruit me. I think understand where your prospective schools are going to be in the summertime. send them where you're going to be. And if the stars align and we can see it, then that's great. But, and I don't mean to speak for any other panelists, but, you know, we're on the road every day in the summertime. And if it rains, we're rained out, and we're booking hotels, and we're changing flights, and we're doing this and we're doing that. And everybody talks about quality of life, and I can't wait to get home and mow my lawn. So just let it be where it needs to be. I do think that institutional camps for the top schools you're looking at are the best way to go. You get a feel for the campus, the staff gets a feel for who you are. There's this unknown character piece, which is really, really important, in my opinion. You know, we want to see what's under the surface, and we want to see, you know, the young people when they're away from mom and dad. Okay, can you hold a conversation? Are you too dependent on mom and dad? How do you interact with others? Because for me, it's important. It's not important. The character piece is underrated in my opinion, because if you get the wrong person in your locker room, that person's going to beat you up every day. He or she might beat you on the field every once in a while, but you don't want to get beat up every day. And that's not a criticism towards young adults and young kids coming through the system. It's just, we want to be right. You know, it's the culture piece that everybody's talking about. We're in a different world than we were 10 years ago. You just want to make sure it's right. And I'll also tell everybody listening too that do it. You know, where do you want to be? It's not all about Division I. It's not all about the perks, because there's so many different levels, as Jill said, within each division. So figure out what you want to do. How do you want to invest the next 4 years of your life to get you through the next 40 years? You want to get it right the first time. Okay, it's like marriage, right? You want to get it right the first time. You don't want to have to get through it again. So just have a feel and do what you want to do. And certainly mom and dads need to be a little bit, take the lead on this at the beginning, but then I think we got to back off, because it's your son's or daughter's experience. And that's what's really most important. And I can say that because I've had 3 kids go through this. And my daughter is a senior in college now. So I'm going to be my youngest is off the table now. No more tuitions for me. And I know that Tom's going to get into that here in a minute, but just let your kids be kids. Let them grow, let them succeed, help them through their failures. But we want to avoid these ups and downs, whether it's a recruiting process or anything else we're going through. So I know my 5 minutes is up.
Great, Coach. No, excellent. No, we appreciate it. There was one question a little bit more particular. What is your advice and feedback? So before they're of the grade to have the open communications, what is it going to look like for, let's say, a freshman or sophomore who sends an email? What does that response look like? What can they expect to hear back? Just if you can talk a minute about that.
At the Division I level, the only thing that they can expect to hear back is a camp email, but they have to be in high school to receive that camp email. Other than that, they go in the class of 2030 file or whatever it is.
And then Jill, maybe Coach Serafino, maybe you could just talk quickly on that, just as at the Division III level.
Yeah, we can go ahead and email really anyone 9th grade on at the Division III level. The only thing we can't do is talk to them off campus in person until their junior year. But everything else is pretty much a full go for us, 9th grade on.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. All right. So Coach Bohr, if you can talk some just in your experience around kind of this idea of scholarships, you know, partial, full, and merit aid, and when it is appropriate time to kind of discuss this or bring it up with a coach, finances are a factor in the decision process.
Sure. Yeah. I'm enjoying listening to my colleagues, Jill and Bill, talking about their experiences. I was just thinking when Bill was chatting about the do's and don'ts, or just some things that student athletes should do, is my favorite email that I get every year is, "Dear Coach Bohr, I'm really interested in Boston College, and I know they're sending. I know. I mean, it's okay. I mean, we know that your student athletes are looking at a bunch of schools, and but it's it's always good to double check your emails when you send them out. But no, when I'm recruiting, and I'm speaking for myself, but I have a lot of colleagues and coaches that I'm friends with, and when we're recruiting, obviously we're looking for, I'm looking for kids that I think that can row at the Division I level. Like, one, they may have experience. One, we think that in the right program, they're good athletes. They just need more coaching. They come along. We think that they could be a good fit for us. The second point is that we have a lot of kids that we're really interested in, know that can row, think they'd be a great fit for us. But then two is that, can they get into the university? We have plenty of kids that we really like, but there's just no way that they're going to get into BU. And I'm talking to any student here on the call, is that, one thing about being recruited is that what we can do is, for kids that we think are a good fit, we can get their academic information. We can get a pre-read on them. Usually for us in rowing, by the summer after their junior year, sometimes before that, we can get a read from the school to say, yes, this student is strong enough to get into the school. Once we have that, we know that we like them. We know that they can get into the school. We go through the visits, official visits. Hopefully we've met them a few times on the road, watched them practice. They've come on an unofficial visit. We get them for an official visit, like early. Usually for us, it's and the rules are changing now, but usually in rowing, our official visits are in the fall of their senior year. But again, once we feel like if it's a good fit, they like us, we like them, then the most important question is, like, how do you pay for all this school now? And that's usually where I get the parents involved at that point. And there's a lot of things that we can do, and that you can do as well. Is that at BU we're a Division I sports, so I have a certain amount of athletic scholarship. I think of it as a pool of money. It's not an endless pool of money, but it's it's a certain amount of scholarship dollars that it can be given out in full scholarship, half scholarship, 5K, 20K, so it's I think of it as like financial aid in some ways, obviously, because it is money that we give to a student or to an athlete on our squad. But again, just to kind of go through that timeline, is that if we really want someone and they like our school as well, we usually have a pretty good idea if I think that if athletic aid is going to be on the table. But also what we do too is a question that I always ask the student, and when I get and talk to the parents, is that if I think the family apply for financial aid? And it's a pretty open question. It's like some families, said, yeah, definitely we are, and some families, no, we don't think we'd be eligible for financial aid. But if a family they think they are eligible for financial aid, what we can do is we can also do a financial read. So the parents fill out the FAFSA form, they make a copy of it, they send it to our liaison in the financial aid office, and then they do a read and basically make a determination if that family is eligible for financial aid. At that point, if they are, like, I don't decide what the financial aid for the school is, but if the school comes back and say this student is eligible for $20,000 of aid a year, that's a great thing. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's none. But the rules also too with athletic aid are that if someone's on financial aid after year one, you're able to stack it. So if someone's getting $20,000 in year one, $20,000 per year, after they finish their freshman year, we can add athletic aid on top of that. So it could be $20,000 again for financial aid, and then if I have some money for athletic aid I could add another 10 or 15, whatever, and then kind of stack that amount. But the athletic aid, it is athletic aid. So it's I divvy up the money where I think, again, based on a couple different principles, is that, you know, if someone, like in terms of rowing, I look at experience, race experience, strength, you know, where they are right now, and where I think they're going to be. And I have kids on my team that come in as freshmen with athletic aid. I have kids that start with no aid, and I have a pretty big squad. I have about 45 kids on my team, and it's for a coach, it's a pretty big dynamic with if you have kids with athletic aid on your team and you have kids that don't have athletic aid on their team. And I always tell kids that if you're getting financial aid, if you're getting athletic aid, whether it's 10,000, full scholarship, whatever, you know, I tell them two things. I said, don't ever tell anybody what you're getting for financial aid, because you know what, they're going to look at you. The day that you're not working hard, the day that you're dogging it, or say, I don't really care about practice today, they're going to be watching you, and you're going to be under the microscope. And I also think when you get athletic aid, you know, there's some responsibility with that. I feel like, not that it's, you know, I think of it's like an honor to get it, and that, you know, that when you get that athletic aid, basically the school and the athletic department are help paying your, you know, your time to be a student athlete at our university. And, you know, with that comes responsibility. And, you know, not that I expect more from them, but what I do expect from them is that that they are honoring and working hard and being a good example to everyone else. You know, just to get back on athletic aid, it's you know, as a student, when you're talking to coaches, it's okay to ask about it. Like, you know, what are some of the criteria that you know, give out athletic aid? And, you know, it's all open conversations. It's good to ask them. It's good to know. You know, certainly for kids that I think that are at a high level right now, that we're recruiting, you know, I do talk to them about, you know, athletic aid, like saying if, you know, if we know that we can get you into the school and have you come for a visit, you know, there's, you know, we'll be able to help out with your family to pay for school, just to kind of plant that seed that it's like, oh yeah. And plus, if students or student athletes are really good and they're being recruited by multiple schools, they're probably going to get multiple offers from different schools. So it's a little bit of you know, how should I say this, with being, you know, I'll never back a kid in the corner of making them tell me, like, listen, I'm going to give you this aid, but you got to tell me today and you have to commit to me today. I think there are some dirty tactics sometimes by coaches that say, listen, we're going to give you aid and you have to cut off contact with every other coach. And I don't play that way. I think kids that should make the decision, you know, kids come, you know, commit to another school, take a, you know, take a scholarship from another school. But there's been a lot of time invested with kids and recruiting. And one of the things I really appreciate, you know, the correspondence and the relationships that you build during the recruiting process. And kids that we really like that go on to another school, you know, my thing to them is always, listen, you know, I really enjoyed, you know, meeting you. I think you would have done well here. And if things ever change, you know that you have a place with us. And, you know, and down the road, you know, every couple of years, a kid goes somewhere and says, Coach, you know, it's not working out where I really want, you know, I've wanted to, you know, it's not working out, you know, I really like to look back at the school. And, but we'll never paint anybody in the corner, nor should anyone ever feel like, you know, you're getting pushed into a corner to make a decision that you're not comfortable with. I'm hoping I'm answering your questions about scholarship. I know there were some questions about merit aid. You know, at BU, I mean, we have athletic aid, we have financial aid. There's merit aid that kids apply for within the school for academic scholarships. Those are obviously decided by a whole department. Division III schools have, I believe, financial aid and merit aid. The Ivies are all financial aid, I believe. I mean, they don't have athletic aid. And also looking at schools, it's every school, we figure out how to make it work for kids. And I always tell families too, if they feel like BU is the place for them, then I really want to be able to make it work with the family. And even with it's so, if I have a kid that's starting out with, $10,000 a year with athletic aid, that can go up over time. And a lot of times when we're working with families about athletic aid, I can kind of paint a picture for them, like how that scholarship can go up over the years, and it is athletic aid. So it has to be like, there has to be some athletic metrics along the way of performance or getting stronger. But also too, it's pretty motivating when kids work a goal and they get it and they get another level of athletic aid. And but I can kind of paint a little picture with the family, not just what's going to cost for this year, but what it could probably cost over 4 years with scholarship going up. And I also too, all the seniors on my team are on some athletic scholarship. I believe in rewarding. I have kids that have come on my team that start out as freshmen with no athletic aid. But if they're on my team, 4 years later, they're on some aid. They've worked hard. They're good examples. They're contributing. They don't have to be the best guy on the team to get athletic aid, but they're killing it in the classroom, being good teammates, setting an example, building the culture of the team. I want to be able to reward that. And, and for me as a coach too, it's some of the, most gratifying moments where a kid that's kind of like on a lower part of my team, like, athletic wise, but just giving everything he has, his own spot on the team, and then say, listen, I'm going to give you, athletic aid, for your senior year. Just the gratitude that these kids and the appreciation, it really makes them feel good, but it's, it's just nice to see. So there's a lot of ways to make it work, but, and also too, with athletic scholarships, a lot of questions come through is like, if an athlete is injured, do I lose my scholarship? No. Okay. If you have some medical, even for mental health, you get sick, you get injured, your scholarship will not go away for that. The only way that your scholarship can go away if you're on an athletic aid is that you either become academically ineligible, which means that your grades are just fall below a certain level, or you get kicked off the team. You violate, school rule, code of conduct, team rules. If you lose your scholarship, you did something to lose it, and it's, every so often I do need to take away a scholarship, but, the parents have never called me about it, because when they know what their kid has done, it's not a thing. But it's hard to lose, and and every now and then that it's someone doesn't get it and does lose their scholarship. So anyway, I hope I've been chatting a while. I'll be happy to, if you have any questions, to put in the chat that I can follow up with you on.
Great, Coach. We
Very
appreciate that
informative.
very much. Yes. And Coach, we have some crew athletes on the call. Coach Bohr, maybe you could just talk for a minute, and I know it's a much longer conversation, but just on any thoughts about what the college crew coaches might be looking for from, younger athletes as they're coming through high school and developing and hopefully college prospects.
I mean, sure, great question. But in rowing, we have this for the non-rowers, we have this thing called the ergometer, the Concept 2 ergometer. So it's coaches will always ask about, what are some of their test scores on the on the ergometer, and there's different lengths. So it's, for me, we look at a 2K score, 2,000 meters or 30 minutes or 6K. So coaches will always look for that. They'll look at also, what program, obviously what program you row for, like how many years you've been rowing. And, also too, on the rowing side is that a lot of, rowing is a different sport than obviously like, soccer or baseball or, kids, a lot of kids don't start rowing until they're 10th grade or 11th grade. So it's a whole other metric. So one of the things we also do is to talk about your athletic ability. I mean, I love to hear kids that I'm a swimmer, I'm a cross country runner, I'm a strength trainer, it's, they have to show athleticism, and I was a walk-on, I didn't row in college but we look for good athletes, and we feel like if you've done other things besides rowing, that's a good thing. We want to hear about that.
Great, thanks very much, Coach. Hey, Allie, shifting gears just a little bit, maybe you could talk about how you feel King, because we have a number of King student athletes on the call, prepared you for not only college athletics, but also for college in general. I think people would be really interested to hear kind of how that worked for you and how that prepared you.
Yeah, my God. Okay, so I would say the first thing, King is great at having you juggle a lot. I would say everyone I knew at King was involved in at least 3 things. You're doing school, you're doing an extracurricular athletically of some sort, and then there's also this like extra something going on over here. It's like you have a club going on, you have a play going on, like there's hats going on, there's balls in the air. So King was incredibly great for me at getting me focused and organized, what to do in my free time, because once you hit college, you have both a ton of free time and no free time at all, because you have a schedule now that is much looser than it is at King. King kind of has, I don't know how your guys' schedule looks now, but back in my day, we had our colorful blocks. It was like A through Q or something. That I don't know how long it got, but I don't know. Only Ren is with me right now, but we just kind of went through that, and things were scheduled down to a very particular minute, and you had some free periods. In college, though, you have a much more flexible life with how much time you have, which is an absolutely beautiful thing. But King helped me block out my time. So I knew, okay, this is when I have to take my focus time here and here and here. But I can still be creative and flexible because I'm used to having all these balls in the air. So that was honestly just like a mental thing I learned at King, as just like a study habit that I think you should bring with you as you kind of learn and grow. Also, I know there are some teams in kind of D3 that unfortunately do practice, and I don't know how y'all roll as well, but like early in the morning or whatnot. I was very fortunate in my school where our practice blocks always fell in the 4 to 7 range. We lifted really early and we had team meetings really early, and that always kind of ranged true. But King also, we kind of had our late afternoon was when we kind of did athletics. So I kind of kept true to a very King cadence of life as far as like, when are we kind of lifting and doing sport? So I would say it was a very smooth transition in that way. As far as athletics, a lot of the values that we had back in the day were the same for me when I went to college. So I think we tried to just instill a lot of that like community energy and really good culture. That was what we had when I was there back in the day. And I felt the same for college. That's what I tried to bring through. So I felt wildly prepared in that way. There's a bunch that you're not going to be prepared for, but I think you'll feel that it'll hit you and you'll completely figure it out. The biggest thing I think when you're going to be a college athlete or hoping to is just committing to yourself once you start the process, saying, hey, I want to be a college athlete. Once you've said that and you realize that in yourself, it's incredibly liberating. Because to everybody else's points, then you just start asking people, hey, what can I improve here? What can I do this? And then it's kind of a lifelong journey. It doesn't really stop, like it doesn't stop once you get to the place, because now you're just improving with your coach and your team. So it's just a kind of growth mindset from there. You get your summer packet to work really hard that upcoming summer. I trained with a bunch of my teammates from King to help me train for my college team when I went. So it's really a very kind of meshed world that I lived in. I don't know if Ren has anything to build on, or if you, the next question there.
Yeah, that'd be great, Ren, if you want to. Ren was, for all that couldn't see, Ren was shaking his head the whole time agreeing. So Ren, if you want to add anything to that, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. I think, obviously at the Division I level, there's a lot of, there's definitely some differences, across from D3, but there's so much carryover and so many similarities. At the end of the day, you're playing a college sport and you're going to be, dedicated and committed to that. It's just kind of the, how many hours per week and what you're doing outside of it. But for me, definitely, obviously I got two different schedules with football and baseball, so it's a little bit different. But obviously, again, still some similarities. So like I'm kind of similar with Ali, like a lot of our practices. I'm lucky. I know some schools do it differently, but we practice in the afternoons for both football and baseball. I know some sports sometimes have to change around a little bit, and it is a little different. I guess the one thing I will say, the off season and in season are very different. So your schedules in the off season and your schedule in season are going to be probably very different because, with facility usage and stuff, like your spring, off season schedule, you probably won't be able to use the same facilities and stuff that you normally would and have priority with while you are in season. So that definitely changes. I know for spring football, our practices were typically in the morning, just because of, lacrosse and other sports we're using, our stadium during our normal practice hours. So that definitely changes. But, a lot of it is, I would say definitely if you're not an early morning person, you got to learn to be an early morning person because you're going to have to do it a lot. Whether that's, 6 a.m. conditioning, 6 a.m., weights and lifting, or it's practice or, meetings or, a lot of time, like for us, for football, we meet every day, at least once, sometimes twice, 3 times a day, watching film, going over the playbook, doing a lot of different stuff. So it can be, early in the morning, depending on how your coaches kind of want to do it. A lot of it is around your class schedule. So like when you have time throughout the day, sometimes right around that lunchtime area, everyone's kind of free, depending on how, you're wherever you are in school kind of does their, how their class schedule works, whether, it's, hour blocks, hour and a half, 3-hour classes, whatever it is. So a lot of it is around your class schedule a lot. But at the end of the day, like you have, your sports blocks for, practice and games. But I would say for me, at least in both cases, the off season is definitely, and in some ways it's a lot harder than being in season, because in season, that's when you get to have fun, you get to compete and play games and what everyone's there, to do. So that's definitely very different than being in the off season, when you might not be practicing as often for as much time, but you are lifting more, you're conditioning more, you're doing so many different things that are just not necessarily specific to practicing and playing, that might not be as fun and enjoyable, but you have to do them and you have to kind of grind and struggle through them. And there's definitely going to be days, like, a lot of people said already, like there's going to be days you don't want to get up for that 6 a.m. You don't want to, go to class right after you just had a really hard conditioning session. You want to go back to bed. But, they're all things that you have to kind of just learn and grow as an individual, and understand that these are, your responsibilities, and you're there for a job at the end of the day, especially at the Division I level. A lot of people can attest to that. Like you're there and you're there with the expectation to give everything you have every day, regardless of kind of what else is happening outside of, sports. So it's definitely different than high school. In a lot of ways, it's a job more so than just like a hobby where it might be in high school. And regardless of where you are, what level, it's going to be, pretty much the same thing. You got to be dedicated. It's just there's certain similarities and differences that come with both. But for me, like I guess, like, from being in season now, our schedule is a little different because we travel a lot. I know, Coach Decker was talking about going to Miami this week. So we're traveling this weekend we're playing Duke. So we have to leave on Thursdays and then get down there for our Friday, Saturday, Sunday games. And then, like, I know probably a lot of people will ask, but we do miss a fair amount of class. So especially with, sports like baseball and softball and things like that, where you play multiple games and series per weekends and midweeks and stuff like that, with football, it's Saturdays and that's it. So you miss maybe a Friday afternoon class when you're traveling, something like that. But for baseball, especially, we do miss a fair amount of class. So you really have to, communicate with your professors, communicate with your coaches and what you're missing, how you're going to make it up with your professors, whether it's going to office hours, TAs. Sometimes, if you have a quiz or an exam, I know for us, our coach will like proctor our exam. So if whether we're on the bus or in the hotel or wherever we are, they can make that possible for us. But at the end of the day, like when you play college sports, you have to be really good at time management because a lot of times, living at home is really easy and mom and dad can hold your hand and do a lot of things for you. But when you get to college, you're on your own and you have to figure out how to go to class, go to practice, eat, and have a social life. And then you're introduced with this whole aspect that maybe people want to talk about, but like you're in college, you can pretty much do whatever you want. And that's the reality of it. And you have to figure out how to be a college kid, but also understanding what you have to do and what your responsibilities are. And there's time for it all. Like I'm a Division I athlete. We can do, we have fun. We are able to do things outside of our sport and hang out with people and do a lot of things that people, we have more time than people probably think we do. But you're able to do everything that you want to do, and your life is not just dedicated to sports and school. Like you have life outside of both those things, but you have to realize and how to grow and just be able to how to handle those things and be responsible with each different aspect of your life in college, because at the end of the day it's yours and no one else's, and you kind of have to decide what you want and how to prioritize those things and just see how important each one is to you. And a lot of times, sometimes you'll find out sports may not be as important to you as they were when you first got there. So that's something that everyone has to just consider, and you'll find out. You'll grow and you'll find out pretty quick on what's important to you and how you want to live your life.
Yeah, I think you're touching on the three things. They often get categorized into those buckets, which is your social life, your athletics, and then your academics. And sometimes there are varying degrees of all of those at the D3 and the D1, D2 level. And even different varying degrees at D1 level, whether you're at an Ivy or an ACC school or whatever, you're at the Patriot League. But yeah, being able to manage it all is truly the education through athletics, which was what the Princeton motto was really becoming educated through your experience as a student athlete. Ren, we have a question for you about training as a quarterback outside of King. Were there any special camps that you attended? And then also, if one of the panelists can segue into another question that was talking about if there's a difference between camps on campus and showcases.
Yeah, I can start real quick. So I guess I didn't mention before, but yes, but I played quarterback at King for 4 years. I was recruited to play quarterback here. And so I definitely was very lucky. I had some great coaches, obviously at King, some of the best coaches that I've ever played for. I'd die to go back and play for them again if I could. But, I had Coach Gowan at my disposal, and, he was great, how just learning what, not necessarily the physical aspect and just talent aspect of it. And a lot goes into being a quarterback specifically of, knowing everything about everything and, the plays and everything else that, everyone else around you is doing. But from, just training aspect, a lot of it starts in the weight room, getting bigger, faster, stronger, eating well, doing all those things. And I was, fortunate enough to have great coaches, like, I don't know if it's on, but Coach Saraceno was a great, help to me, just kind of mentoring me and how to become a better, not only just a quarterback, but a football player, a person. But, going to camps in the summer, whether that's recruiting camps for football, those are all, they're beneficial because you're playing with kids that are all really good around you. And I think the best way to kind of foster success is, be around people that are maybe better than you and learn from them. So, learn and look up to a lot of people that, maybe older, maybe more talented, whatever it is. Just kind of pick and choose. And, there's a lot of great resources out on the internet now. You kind of find so many videos and things from that. But I think the biggest thing is just going out and doing it, whether it was captain's practice with, my teammates or whoever was around, wanted to run routes and catch, or, whether it was my dad in the backyard or whatever, so the biggest thing is just kind of getting out and doing it. And I think there's a lot of people that, want to talk about it, but, you got to go out and do it. So that's kind of my advice. Just there's a lot of camps and a lot of coaches around that can do it, but just find someone that you trust and someone that's knowledgeable, and just dedicate to, giving it time, because it's not something that happens overnight, not something that happens over a year. It's a long developing skill, and just like anything else in any other sport. So just give it time and stay to it.
Thank you. Does anyone want to talk about the differences between camps on campus and showcases?
I'll take a stab at it. Been
Awesome.
doing it for long enough, but obviously the difference is these showcase camps are run by outside people. It's a revenue, it's a business for them. So you can go broke if you go from showcase to showcase to showcase to showcase. I think the positive thing about the showcase circuit is you're going to get a lot of schools there. So it's kind of a quick look-see, so to speak, right? You know, you're in one day or for 2 days and then you're out. So you're going to be in front of a lot of college coaches. But I think I speak for many that we still want to see you play the game, regardless of what that game is, right? So we want to see people compete outside of a showcase situation. I think as I alluded to a little while ago, I think the biggest thing about institutional camps is you get to tour, you get to be around, there's generally players there, right? So you get that good feel for what you want to do. But at the same time, you can't do, 15 to 20 institutional camps in the summertime. So you need to pick and choose. You need to find out, kind of where you're getting a little bit of love from, and then go visit those schools through their camps.
Awesome, perfect. Another question came through. When you're coming down to sort of the final wire and you're getting some vague correspondences from the coaches, and you want to know if it's a legitimate recruitment or if the coach is just trying to get you to come to the camps and clinics. Is there a straightforward way of asking a coach if you're actually a viable recruit?
I'll jump back on the horse here
Okay.
and say, we don't do that. I mean, anybody that emails us or sees our camps listed, or maybe their coach or summer or high school coach or summer coach recommends them, those are the only invites that we will send out. So we're not mass mailing off of lists.
Yeah.
They choose to sign up and then they go from there. But like I'm sure all the panelists here, we have schools from Division III that make a killing off of our camps. Okay, most of their rosters are filled with those kids that come to our camp, and we've gotten kids every year out of our camp. It's a great thing. So,
Okay. Tom, if there's a rower who has a really far out erg score that keeps emailing you, are you going to be direct with them?
Far out, I mean, like just
Way
Drop
off,
that.
like not
way off.
range.
Yeah. I mean, I try to respond back. I get a lot of emails, but I don't get
Yeah.
hundreds. And I do get a lot of emails, but if someone's way out, I'll just tell them what our I'll just be honest and just say kind of what our standard is. So just so they know. And on the occasion of, where I've had some correspondence with kids, and I may add that, I may kind of direct them to a school that might be more appropriate, kind of athletic for them. But I don't know, you do get a lot of emails. You can't respond to everything, but if some kid writes in, I think it's also too because they write, if they're from a program, with a lot of other kids in it, it's good for them to know, like, oh, I talked to the BU coach, and this is what we're looking for. So, so where I can, I'll try to, yeah.
But silence could also.
I'll
be
also say if they write to me and I'm on the wrong school, I'll just say, were you looking to contact me, or no, I'm not kidding.
AC.
Emily, let me just say this too, if I could, is like no to a recruit might not be the answer that he or she wants to hear, but it's also going to open up the doors, right? So as soon as you hear a no from somebody,
Yeah.
there's going to be maybe 2, 3, 4 other doors that open up. So, this process is really a good process. and it's ongoing and it's engaging and you meet a lot of good people. But at the end of the day, we got to make some tough decisions. So the sooner you hear that, you got to move on. It's not personal.
Right.
I think all of us sometimes have to be a little bit selfish to our program's needs first, which can change all the time, right? Based on injuries and whatever else, attrition, people stop playing, things like that. So no is not a bad word sometimes.
Right. I feel like sometimes is it fair to say the D1s have their timeline of recruitment, D3s can pick up those that maybe didn't get D1 recruitment. And then, you know, if it's an organic process, you play club or you go intramural. And if you're not going to play at the varsity level, you don't get picked up by D1, D3, and you're still really wanting to play, then you can go to the club level. And that's a great experience too. All right. Anyone want to comment? I want to be sensitive to time. Anyone want to comment about test optional and how when the schools went to test optional because of COVID, how that changed recruitment?
I can talk about it if you want me to.
Okay.
I think it definitely widened our scope of, prospects that we could look at. Our particular school has some pretty demanding programs in their select program. So, we'll have 450 people applying to this one major and we only accept 45. And they had to meet a certain minimum requirement for testing. And now, since that's off the table, they're looking at each applicant very differently. So for us, it opens the doors because now we know that we're just kind of looking at GPA and we don't have to worry about a minimum test score. So for us, it's been helpful.
Tom, Bill, also open up your.
Yeah, I
scope.
mean, it's been helpful for us as well. Not that every school is a little bit different. Actually, we had a staff meeting today where it came up BU is test optional now as well for next year. But I think a question came up by a coach is, would it be like for if someone was applying for a merit scholarship, could it help if they had an SAT score? And I think they were going to get back, but they thought the question would be yes. If someone did take it and if someone did have a good SAT score, was able to take it, it could help in some different avenues too. So
Helpful to know.
I would agree with Tom. That's kind of the advice that I give people. If it's optional, doesn't hurt you to submit it, can only help.
Awesome. I think that's it. Yeah. Anything else from anybody? I think those are all the questions. Any other questions? If you have questions, pop them in, but I think we are wrapped up.
Yeah, for the panelists, just any last kind of closing thoughts? Again, we're cognizant of time, we're a few minutes over, but just any last closing thoughts as we wrap up here.
I would just say have a blast. This is so fun. Like if I could be doing college sports again, my God, like jealous of Ren. I just like phenomenal time. I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so old, but like an absolute blast. So take it one step at a time. If you're in 8th grade, which I know some of you are, set a goal for yourself. But it's okay. Like some of this stuff was absolutely irrelevant to you. So just take your time. If you're in 10th grade, make a map, a timeline, set some goals for yourself, but just one step at a time and enjoy the journey, enjoy the vibe, love playing your sport. It's an absolute blast. So I'm just super excited for everybody. Like, let me know where you go. This is awesome.
Great, thank you.
I'll just jump in and just say, listen, just be you and don't overdo as people going through the recruitment process. Okay, coaches know what they're doing, and also, in terms of most of us coach because we like the lifestyle. It's not really a job. It's what we do. We like people. We like relationships. We want to be surrounded by good people that do good things and go on and do great things in the world. So just be yourself. And you'll be successful. If you try to be somebody you're not on the field or off the field, those red flags are going to go up.
Yeah, I'll kind of jump on and just say, I know it's hard, being the recruiting process is not always the easiest. May not be the most fun thing ever, and it's very stressful for a lot of people. But regardless of where you end up, whether it's D3, D2, JUCO, D1, no matter what, like just be grateful, I think, to continue to play the sport that you love. Regardless of where you are, you're one of very few people who, can say that they're a college athlete. And everyone's time is short, it's shorter than you think. I know Allie's, probably wishes she can go back and play. And, for me, I'm a senior. My 4 years went by faster than I could have ever imagined. I'm lucky I have 2 more years of eligibility, and I'm planning on using them. I'm not ready to enter the real world just yet. I want to be a college kid and play as long as I can. So, for me, I'm riding it out as long as I can. And I think, for you guys, that's kind of the goal as well. You only get so much time to play competitively. And, when that time is up, everyone I'm sure everyone who's done is, wishes they could, get one more day. Coaches always used to say it to me, and you don't always necessarily realize it or, understand what it really means because you're in it. You don't miss it. But it's a limited thing, and you never know when it can get taken away from you. And I think a lot of us have kind of learned that through COVID. And it's not guaranteed. The next day, tomorrow is not guaranteed. So just be happy with what you have today and be excited for the future. But just cherish every moment. It comes faster than you think, and you're gonna have some great memories and lifelong, friends and relationships that will last forever. So just love what you're doing. Don't get caught up too much where you are, where you end up, but just have fun with it. It's the best time of your life, for sure.
Thanks, Ren. Just logistically speaking, if you are interested in playing college athletics, make sure you reach out to your college counselor and understand how we work with you. Also your coach, so your coach at King and perhaps the club that you play for outside. They can help with self-assessment, as we were talking about and Jill touched on a little bit, helping you create the target list and reach out to coaches. So just logistically fill out the questionnaire if you want to for being assigned to me or one of the other college counselors. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of outreach, but it is all worth it, as you've heard.
Yeah, so we want to thank everyone tonight for being with us. A reminder that the recording of the program will be posted to the website. So if you had to jump off or miss anything, that'll be there. Panelists, if you're willing, we might just share some contact information, and that way if families want to reach out, they can kind of do that on their own. And I think for all of you on the call, like Coach Emily said, we have great people in place here at King to support you. The college counseling office, your coaches, our athletic department staff. We're here to help you. We're here to talk with you, answer questions. This was a tremendous amount of information and some really, really great feedback and thoughts. One thing we just remind everyone about, everyone's experience is going to be different. So no matter what you see or your teammate or your friend, this is all very individual, and it's all going to depend on your own interest, what you're looking for, the colleges you're looking at, the coaches involved. So please reach out to us. We can, again, answer questions, help support you along the way. And we're just thrilled that you joined us tonight and that you're able to stay with us. And we appreciate everything. And please reach out with questions. Panelists, thank you very much for your time. We value every minute you gave with us. And it was just a tremendous opportunity to hear from you and all your wisdom and thoughts on this great opportunity for our student athletes. So thank you, everyone, and have a great night tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.